This episode is brought to you by Candy Crush Saga. The holidays can be pretty hectic, so take a little time for yourself with the ultimate holiday treat, the classic Match 3 puzzle Candy Crush Saga. And right now, you can catch the limited time event Sweet Surprise Season and win sweet daily rewards like a super rare party booster and up to 10 gold bars. Don't miss out. Play Sweet Surprise Season and Candy Crush Saga and crush it this holiday season now until January 1st. Download from the App Store, Google Play, or Windows Store for free. Terms and conditions apply.
You're now listening to The Bradshaw Boys, a podcast where three relatively grown men binge the iconic HBO series Sex and the City. So dust off those DVDs and grab yourself a white wine or even a Cosmopolitan and settle in. Take it away, boys.
Welcome to the Bradshaw Boys, a podcast where three guys are watching And Just Like That. And just like that, I'm Cory Cavin.
I'm Kevin James Doyle.
My name is Jon Sieber, and I love the new intro.
I know.
I mean, we got stuff to do. We got things to break down. We don't have time for this bullshit.
We got a podcast. We're a couple of Che Diaz's here. We gotta hit the airwaves hard.
Absolutely. Who's the podcast boss? I like how she refers to herself. I'm the podcast boss.
Yeah.
I'm the boss of the podcast.
You know what? Listen, here's what, especially because we have an urgency of that is not present in when we're breaking things down.
Yep.
We watched the ep, we rewatched it, and we wanted to give special time to the pod. So what should we do? Should we just get into it?
I guess so. I guess
we should. We're breaking the format then. I mean, we need to do some sort of bullshitting here.
Yeah, let's do a little bullshit. We should talk about the fact.
Talk about Little Debbie Christmas trees or something. Like,
dude, Little Debbie Christmas trees. They got the colored sugar. Oh, yeah, like the green and red sugar. It's so good. I have some of that green and red sugar in my cupboard, which probably is not a surprise to anyone. But it's delicious.
I feel like the lay of the land where we're at is the two episodes came out last week.
Yes.
Last Thursday. We watched them both. And then it was so late because the new episodes are 45 minutes.
Yeah.
The new one. Or do you think they're all going to be 45 minutes? Which 45 minutes is standard hour-long television without commercials. It's 44 minutes is what that is. And so it's funny that streamers now are just like, a lot of times they're like, well, we'll make an hour TV show, but it's only 44 minutes because that's what it would be. I know,
that is so weird.
I mean, after this, you need to go watch
16 minutes
26 minutes or 16 minutes of commercials. Yeah, exactly.
Just watch the same Gillette razor commercial over and over again for 16 minutes.
Yeah.
And just remember what the 2000s were like. I mean,
it's the best
even Curb does that. Curb has longer episodes now, and it's like a full-on comedy. So I don't know. I think you're not really bound by the traditional format, so it doesn't really matter. Because even on HBO Premium, they still had to have half-hour slots. You know?
Yeah.
Like when when Sex and the City was originally on.
Was there dumb commercial or dumb question? Was there commercials on the original HBO? No, because it was a paid thing.
Paid service. Yeah.
Damn, HBO's been in the pocket for a long time offering that.
I mean, they started with we talked about this when we started the pod, but like their big thing when they started was like boxing, right? It was like boxing and sports, and then movies, and then
Taxi Cab Confessions and Real Sex.
Yeah.
Still the Real Sex. Real Sex was awesome. It was just the first time just watching old HBO people jerk off on a mountain.
Do you think HBO was pissed when other TV networks started like charging? They weren't doing that since like the 80s.
Well,
Netflix is this novel company. Netflix. No, I mean when the game, it's like Netflix just stole HBO's business model.
That's literally the past 10 years. We had our previous guest James Andrew Miller, who did the Sex and the City podcast, and what was his podcast?
Origins.
He just put out a huge book about the history of HBO. And it's all about like the Sopranos, Sex and the City era and how that's like literally the greatest era of television that changed everything. And then
so far.
But then when Netflix came in, the past until they created HBO Max, and that's what we're watching this on, everyone was just like, what the fuck? You guys are just getting lapped by Netflix. And he said that HBO Max rollout is one of like the most like dysfunctional like corporate mess ups in a while. They just like let them get way ahead. And that book like just came out. It was just on this podcast called The Business the other day, and he was talking about it. Very fascinating.
That is super fascinating. I heard that this show is HBO Max's highest watched new show ever. Yeah.
So I feel like this, and we talked about this before, but this is like one of HBO Max. We don't know how much everyone got paid, but I feel like this was one of their big swings of being like, okay, how do we catch up with places like Prime and Yeah. Also, I
know several people that have subscribed to HBO just because of this show.
Because
they texted me and they're like, "I just want to let you know, I'm coming on board with HBO just so I can watch and just like that episode." It's crazy. It's awesome.
Do you mean you know several people that subscribe to HBO Max so they could listen to our podcast? So they would have a reason to listen to our podcast? Is that what it was?
Yeah, they want to hear which one of us is Che Diaz.
Which
one's the boss?
Guess what? We're three faces of Che Diaz.
I'm the laser lines.
Noon and night. Yeah, John's the laser lines. Dude, I hope we get to meet Che Diaz's barber. That's what I hope. I hope so.
I want to show her a picture of the laser lines
barbershop episode
that I put in my head during the beginning of the pandemic that were just awful.
I forgot about those.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not going to see anyone for 10 weeks. So I thought, I'll just do some nice laser lines. And oh boy, I did a shitty job.
But you created your son in that time as well. And so it's like,
that's right.
First time your swimmers like actually found an egg was when you had those laser lines. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Yeah, man. That's the reason.
I mean, I don't know if causation does not equal, what is it called?
Correlation does not equal causation.
But with that, I think it 100% does.
Yeah, man.
So. Well, we did. Yeah, we're like in the thick of it. Tomorrow we're gonna watch the new episode.
Mm-hmm.
And
we should bring everyone's attention. It is 7:45 a.m.
Yeah,
we are very dedicated to delivering a nice, hot, spicy podcast before the third one comes out. Kevin, you've watched this episode several times.
Yep.
I can tell because I can see the steam coming off your face of how pissed you are off at Miranda.
I had to rewatch this episode because Sarah Jessica Parker sent us a bunch of her in vivo wine. And so when I watched this episode, John had to go home and then we watched it, me and Cory, and then we were going to pod later. And me and Cory just pounded a bunch of Sarah Jessica Parker's in vivo wine. And like the last 20 minutes of this, I was a real Miranda, which is to say an alcoholic. Which is to say a booze hound drunk.
And I was I
was abusive to Cory. I started slapping him. I was like, "You're never gonna fuck your girlfriend under my watch. Quit smoking weed, you fucking bum."
And you enrolled in a technical college too to take online classes. It's great.
And
I started a new degree.
And I started Kevin's verbally assaulting all the non-binary women on my street.
Kevin kept being a subway hero and checking people's IDs everywhere. Oh, look, there's Katie and Mickey in the background.
Coming by to say hey.
How long's Mickey been awake?
Mickey had a rough night. Everyone was a parent. It's like, I know we've heard this before. He had a rough night last night. He like just woke up and was awake for like 3 hours in the middle of the night. So then he woke up at 6:30. So it was.
Did he hit that button? Did he hit that button?
What button?
woke moment.
Do you think the woke moment button's going to come back?
Moment.
Awake
moment. Yeah,
He's
it definitely will be.
I can't wait.
One thing about this episode that I think people should remember, they knew they were going to release both at the same time. And so it is kind of like 1 hour and a half long movie in a way.
Right.
It doesn't end with like resolution. It ends with like the beginning of the series, but it was meant to be like dropped at once. And so a lot of people have talked about how sad it is. And they're like, we watched Sex in the City to be happy and to remember. And this is really sad. But I think they're setting it up for a real whimsical next 8 episodes.
Yeah. I'm interested to see once we get the 3rd episode, like the table is set. And I think now we're going to be out of the gate for our new series. And it's like, okay, groundwork's been laid. I also wonder if they're not going to do as many COVID references, because on the second rewatch of episode 2, you know, Bitsy Von Muffling is like, when I lost my husband to the COVID, and she was talking about how no one could do a Zoom Shiva. And like, I think they're going to be like, okay, we've caught you up a million times now. Now we're in the world now.
Do you guys think Carrie's going to fly? Is Carrie going to fly again?
Yes, she's gonna get a booster, and one of the side effects is that she's just gonna start flying.
She's flying
you could either get myocarditis or you could fly.
And she's
gonna play Quidditch for an entire episode.
For those of you that forget
crossovers with Harry Potter.
For those of you that are just like, I want the series to be like it used to be. Do you really want
Carrie to fly?
Looking at the camera and then just having 5 dudes at the Greenwich Village basketball park just being like, "What's up? My name's Phil Stein. I play point guard for the fucking losers that play basketball, and I love blowjobs." And then Carrie just flies off. When Big takes her on a date, she just floats off like she's Mary fucking Poppins. Do you want how it used to be? Things change. This isn't just like that. This isn't season 1 of Sex in the City, motherfuckers.
And that was a woke moment. That was our woke moment right there. Yeah. That's when we wake you up to the fact that it's not Sex in the City anymore.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just had my coffee.
You know, one thing that it is interesting that like this was 2 dropped at the same time, and that is a weird thing that we're gonna be into now. I don't think they'll do that again, but the nature of streamers is like when they started Eastbound and Down, they were like, we conceptualized this as we only wanted to do 1 season, and then HBO was like, we want you to do another season. And so they were like, we basically just thought of this as like, we're making 3 6-hour long movies, and then they ended up doing a 4th season. But it's like, and then Succession, I was just talking to someone about this last night. Succession season 3, I was so confused as to why they did 9 episodes for season 3 as opposed to 10. And someone was like, well, it's like 3 triptychs. It's like the first 3 episodes are like a triplet, or it's not a couple, whatever. It's like 3 triptychs. It's like 3, 3, and 3. And then like this, and then like episode 2 and episode 4. There's like, you can basically play with format like that in streamers. Yeah. And so they're doing that with this one where it's like they'll set it up and then they're off to the races.
Well, let's get off to the races. Let's break down this little black dress.
Let's take a little break. Katie will read the episode summary, and we will come back and guys and listen to Kevin rant about Miranda. It'll be great.
All right, Katie, take us away.
Corey, I got a question.
Tell me.
Do you ever feel like Carrie Bradshaw and a deadline? You're stressed. You're not sure what to do.
Oh my gosh.
You're a little bit agitated. I got a solution for you, actually.
What is it?
You know me. I'm a gamer. Angry
You're
Birds
a huge gamer.
Journey. Angry Birds.
Oh my gosh.
The game on the app. And then Journey, like the band. Don't stop believing. New Angry Birds game.
Dude, I love Angry Birds. I love pulling back the bird and shooting it and destroying things. It's so much fun. It's like I like to imagine that I'm pulling the bird back and shooting it through the gap in Richard's teeth and just hitting him in the back of the throat. And I'm doing it all for Samantha.
All new Angry Birds Journey, full of fun puzzles, challenging levels, and delightful destruction. It's available for free in the app and Play Store. Trust me, this is a 5 Cosmo experience. Angry Birds Journey mobile puzzle game is going to bring you hours of fun.
Huge 5 Cosmo experience. Go get it for free. Google Play Store and the App Store.
Jack Johnson grew up surfing and playing guitar in Hawaii. Next summer, he'll be hitting the road to bring you some of that island feeling. Catch Jack and his band, who will be joined at various tour stops by Ben Harper and the Innocent Criminals, Ziggy Marley, Lake Street Dive, Durand Jones and the Indications, and more in a city near you. Get ready to make some new memories with your friends and family, and get your tickets today at Ticketmaster.com.
Episode 2, Little Black Dress. Miranda and Charlotte come to Carrie's aid, proving what good friends are for. Anthony and Stanford vow to let go of their petty arguments. And now, back to the boys.
Okay. And we're back.
We're back. Just like that, I learned how long 5 hours can be. When is it when you experience the theory of relativity at its greatest?
Is that a question?
Yeah. I mean, that's what Carrie was saying. There's the old saying, like, if you want to understand the theory of relativity, spend a minute with someone you like and it feels like an hour. Spend an hour with someone you like, it feels like a minute. Spend a minute sitting on the stove and it feels like an hour. That's what she's saying, right? Like,
I guess
5
so.
hours was when you're in pain, when you're distraught or distressed, time can stretch itself out. Is there like mine is always when we're getting right into it, is like when I can't fall asleep, when I have like, and I think that's what Carrie's going through as well. But when I have insomnia and like you look at your clock and you're like, surely 4 hours has gone by and it's been like 20 minutes and you're like, damn it, why can't I fall asleep? Anyway.
Sorry, go ahead.
Let's get back to Brady sex. Strong
we need to talk about this, the strong start. We know 2 people that because either someone had like shared their password and the first episode was already watched, or they just messed up. We know at least 2 people who texted me and Kevin and said, man, what a weird way to start the series with Brady having sex. And we were like, no, you watch the second episode first.
Yeah. Which also, it was crazy rewatching the episode now and imagining that being the intro, because it's like, it's too bold. I don't think they should have done it, but it is kind of why minus just it being Brady sex. If there was one more intro that was a little different and it started just with Miranda and then going over to Carrie's and maybe one more shot of the city before that, like, I don't know, the sun rising on the city and then Miranda going over there, kind of just throwing you in there is not bad. It wouldn't have, it would be shocking, but it almost made enough sense. It's like, really, it'd be really dark, but it would make enough sense if they did that. And then the second episode was like some big Carrie, like throwbacks. I don't know. It was interesting imagining watching that, thinking that was episode 1, because you'd be like, man, they just ruthless. But
I liked this as an intro to episode 2. I thought it did. I mean, it was bold. They definitely swung, and I think they connected. I think it sets up like this distinction between the younger generation and the Carrie, Miranda, Charlotte, Steve generation. You know, like one generation, and that where the women might have been 20 years ago or a little bit older are carefree, just banging, making noise, doesn't matter. Well, this generation now are dealing with loss and grief, and Steve not being able to hear stuff. I don't know. I just thought it like did a really good job of showing that those two things existing at the same time.
I think it's a difficult thing, because when you watch TV, you know, you think it to represent reality. And I don't want people to get the idea out there that you can go from a girl riding on top to then switch to the guy over the top without having any sort of pullout or any sort of mistake. It was just a complex sexual move for Brady to be making at age 17.
Yeah, well, they both have their sex shirts on, so I think it makes it easier because they got their uniforms on. They got their team uniforms with their sex t-shirts.
It's time to have sex, babe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
grab your t-shirt.
It would be a lot. It would be more realistically. It'd be Brady being like, "Oh, oops," and then her being like, "Wait," and he's like, "What do I do now?" And she's like, "Fucking, I don't know, finger me. This sucks."
Why don't you just pretend to bang the bed against the wall so your parents think you're getting laid?
Yeah. Also,
Yeah, exactly.
this is very important for everyone to know. That girl was not. All of those moans were fake. Those were all her just being like, "Oh gosh, he thinks that he thinks he's really hitting it," but that was that I don't know. I bet they'll have an awkward sex moment later with him, because if they're showing all the sex stuff with him,
aren't they setting up that, like, do you think they're setting this up to have him go through an awkward sex moment, or rather to show this like Miranda, who is very sex positive, non-judgmental, and that's a good question. Or are they showing this side of Brady to then show that Miranda isn't as accepting as we thought she was? Because when he smokes weed, she goes Papa Bear very fast.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think
like that's the thing is when I was watching that, you're like, if you think that there would be a mom that's okay with a 17-year-old having just as much sex as possible, like, I don't think that same person would really care if they took a hit off of a joint. But
right. I mean, I also think they're setting something up for sure. But I think Miranda would have, I don't care how sex positive she was, like, I think that she always would have taken a little bit of that approach to Brady. I think even if you're sex positive, you're still like, yeah, keep it down.
Yeah.
Like, you just got your girlfriend over here and now you're banging the like headboard against the wall. Like, you have school tomorrow, like, I think they're still parents,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
So, like,
and they're
I don't know.
and
I think they're
they-
setting up to their parents.
Yeah, they're just like, that's realistically, they'd care more about the wall. You know what I mean? They'd be like, "This is our fucking brownstone. We purchased this."
I just did the drywall in there last week. Come on. Hey, you're gonna have to rehang the sheetrock when we lay it, Brady. Come on,
that's
it's
my,
not easy to do.
That's our hand-me-down West Elm bed frame, okay? And we're not buying you another one.
We got that from Charlotte and Harry, okay? I don't want to have to ask him for another one. Come on.
Dude, I never really thought of that. Steve and Miranda get so much of Charlotte and Harry's old shit.
Oh, so much, dude. So much. Even if they can afford it, I feel like they're still like,
Oh yeah, dude.
They're
Steve has taken
that's
so
good
many
furniture.
trips up to their apartment to drive shit home.
yeah, exactly.
What if Brady at Big's funeral is just making out with his girlfriend, and they're like, "Stop!" He's like, "Don't sex shame me." They're like, "This is Big's funeral. What are you doing?" And he's like, "I make out and I fuck all the time. It doesn't matter where we're at."
Big would have wanted this.
Big would have wanted it this way. John Preston, he snuck me a scotch, gave me a cigar, and said, "Never stop making out, kid. Doesn't matter where you are.
Wish.
It doesn't matter if you're at my funeral." I could imagine Big actually saying that. Be like, "At my funeral, I hope you're you're getting laid or something."
Yeah,
And he just takes it serious.
Yeah.
making deals and getting laid. The John James Preston way.
Was his middle name James?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, they have his big old name up there. It's a very It was a very lifeless funeral. It was a very posh, lifeless funeral. I saw a few people mention on Instagram just that it's like he would have had a funeral at a church. Like he went to church a few times.
That's very true.
And this definitely did feel like a lifeless TV funeral. And I'm, you know, I don't want to like find things to criticize about the show when there doesn't need to be one, but I noticed a lot of people saying that. And it seemed like, you know, you guys created the character that is at this Episcopal church all the time or whatever church he was at. And this was just an especially, it looked like a funeral at like Kanye West's house. It was just,
totally.
You know what I mean?
Like there would have been a DJ.
Yes.
Yeah.
It did look like a Zoolander funeral, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
It did, totally.
He was a wonderful man.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, it definitely was sponsored by Mugatu.
Mugatu. I totally forgot about Mugatu.
That's
I need to rewatch that movie
from
and see if
Zoolander.
it holds up, because Zoolander was like the shit.
It does hold
I
up
know.
very much.
Oh
Does
my
it? I
gosh.
haven't watched
Oh, yeah.
it in years.
It holds up very
David
much.
Duchovny's in it. It's a very solid movie.
That's just like, that is that age of, we're not going to go down the Zoolander rabbit hole too hard, but like, that's that age of movie that like, maybe it'll come back, but it was just like peak silliness of just like, even the concept of like, it's a movie about models that pooch out their lips and look like this. Like that's the entire concept of the movie.
It's like Airplane for the fashion industry.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Kevin, you watched the episode twice, and you watched it most recently. Give us a rundown. Give us a scene by scene rundown, and then we'll dive in.
So Brady's getting that ass, you know, and then that's he's having sex, and then Miranda and Steve find out that Big is dead. And then Miranda goes over to stay with Carrie. And then we're basically in funeral prep. Carrie's getting online to check out funeral homes. She's watching sizzle reels for the funeral home. She's like, dude, this place looks fucking sick to bury my husband. And then
drone footage.
Drone footage.
And then Miranda goes to school to study human rights on the Upper West Side at Columbia, and she's on the subway, and her they go through security, and then she stops her. She gets through, and then her professor can't find her ID, and so can't get through. So Miranda has a moment where she tries to defend her professor to get her through, and it's like a kind of a Caranda moment, another one. Caranda. And then Kristen Charlotte is having kind of like a family moment, explaining death to her children and getting very emotional. And then we are into the funeral, and some flowers are there.
We have an Anthony and Stanford moment.
Oh, we have a little
too.
Yeah, Anthony and Stanford are being catty. They're kind of like they're probably one of those couples that like everyone at this point is like they're together, but they probably never should have been together. So they make everyone uncomfortable when they're around. They just snipe at each other the whole time. And so
which is like the consensus of Sex and the City diehard fans too, right?
Yeah,
like
that it's like
just the two gay characters got together for no other reason other than that they're gay.
And listen, that could be a snipe at the show, but that also happens in real life. You know, when just two people that are around each other long enough get married and then fight all the time, and they'll be divorced in like 20 years, and everyone just puts up with it till then.
Jeez.
I mean, they do have a very,
I know.
Even in this, they snipe at each other, and then they're like, let's not do it anymore. And then he's like, you have that clone I don't like. And then it ends with this weird cutesy note, but I don't know. Couples like that annoy me. So then Samantha, Carrie doesn't want the flowers at her funeral. She said no flowers, and then she sees they're sent by none other than Samantha Jones. And so she says, keep the flowers. Then we're at the funeral. They play the song from episode 1, which was a very cool callback. You see things from Big's life. His secretary is there. We have a Mitzi Von Muffling moment and a Susan Sharon moment, which we'll talk about. And then also someone's like, Big kind of sucked to who's crying. And they're like, is it me or did Big suck? And then we're kind of, then there's also Miranda drinking at the funeral reference, which we'll talk about. Mm-hmm. And then Carrie and Willie Garson, Stanford Blatch, and Miranda are over at Carrie's, and they don't want Charlotte to come over because she's just crying all the time and not making it about her. She's just very emotional, and she has been throughout the whole episode. And so then she gets in and is like kind of hurt because Carrie's like, I just need my stuff. And then also there's another reference when Willie Stanford Blatch is like, hey, is this too strong? Because they're drinking martinis. And Miranda's like, not for this moment. Kind of another alcohol reference.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's what we got.
And then, we have talked about it in this. I don't remember if you missed it or not in this. Oh, by the way, great wrap up. The only thing is like the Che Diaz Miranda meeting with the smoking weed with the kid with Brady.
Yes.
And then they have their whole like Carrie introduces them later, and then Che Diaz for the 10th time slides into conversation. Well, I'm a comedian, as Che Diaz tends to do all the time.
Hey, I'm a comedian. I'll turn this into a tight 10 on the stand-up stage with the microphone that I speak into.
Exactly. Che Diaz clunkily talks about the fact that, if you think about it, a funeral, there's a setup and a punchline. Che Diaz, why are you ham-fistedly talking about stand-up again? Yeah, all the time.
Dude, it'd be funny because Miranda does her speech, and then Willie Garson says, he's like, oh, I wish I could get up there. And Anthony says, it's a funeral. It's not the moth, which I thought was a very funny.
I thought that was funny.
That was one of the better modern references.
Yeah.
But it would be funny if just like the whole time, like Che Diaz is in the back just cracking her neck being like, oh man, I wish I could fucking get up there.
I know.
Like,
there's one thing. Okay,
it's crazy, right? What else is in the news? Did you guys see gas prices are crazy now, huh?
Thanks, Biden. Did you guys see mention Big's secretary as well? I'm sorry.
Yeah. He mentioned it.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Carrie says that's what she prefers to be called. And then there's a whole thing about they do it's a little hit over the head, but it's actually kind of nice where it's like, she's like, all the other guys got rid of their old girls, and like he kept me on, I don't know if it ever, now this makes sense. Okay. So Stanford and Anthony, Stanford kind of kicks her out of their front seats, and it's weird. But then Stanford's also like, I need to sit by my best friend and need my man by my side. And then there's the weird thing where Che Diaz like walks up from the back and gives the crying secretary a handkerchief. And I thought that was very odd. I think it was just to be like, hey, Che Diaz cares. But do you think that
I think it's also to show that Che Diaz isn't the type of person to sit at a funeral. She stands.
I think that's part of it. Yeah. She stands at the back. But I think, I guess, is there something there with it's like we I think it was another moment
she's a stand-up. So she's committed.
It is. There is a thing where it's like, how comedians always stand at the back of the club. I think it's like, oh, she's a stand-up. She doesn't know how to sit down in a room of people. But also I think it was to be like, I think it's also to show a little more humanity of like this big secretary character of just like, I think, I don't know. I think that's the last time we see big secretary is like they put her in the back and then, she's crying and then Che is nice to her. I guess that was more of a Stanford moment when they sent her to the back and it was like a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding.
Yeah. I mean, I do think the Che Diaz thing right now is just it's a rough character for me because I don't necessarily believe in her career as a comedian. the podcast doesn't seem authentic, and also like, even, I don't know, there's just, I have high hopes that they do something interesting, but right now it just seems like a lot. Even that moment was just like, I'm a sympathetic character.
Right.
You know, it was like, someone's not going to walk like 20 feet and be like, here's a tissue. But the person that gives the tissue is the character that we need you to sympathize with in this next moment. Also, why are you fucking smoking weed everywhere? It's like so dumb. Like, it's so stupid. It's insane how dumb that is.
The weed references are very in your face. And I talked to two friends this week who they lived in New York for like 15, 16 years, and they moved away like 5 years ago. And we were like out doing Christmas stuff, and they were like, man, weed is everywhere. But like, that was it. It's like a normal person is just like, man, there's a lot of weed in New York now. But they're going so hard on the weed stuff with Che Diaz to the point where it's like, yeah, we get it. You can smoke weed in America and in New York, but come on, Che Diaz, like, also get a vape pen. Stop pulling out a lighter in public all the time.
I know, because it would be the common and this just has to do with like realism of like not bringing me out of the show. I don't care.
Yes. Yeah.
But it would be like, you would at least sneak around and be like, oh, are they going to smell it? Like, yeah, but like, we're behind a corner. It wouldn't just be out in the whole thing and just be like, oh, sorry, I've been smoking pot since I'm 13. It's like, well, you've been rude since you've been 13. Okay. Just to have a little decorum. Someone fucking died. Okay.
I hope they go harder with it. I hope that it just elevates to where like they're going to be at like a business meeting, and then you just hear, and Che Diaz just has a giant water bong. Like, I just hope that they just keep pulling it out hardcore.
Do you know what that would be?
What?
A toke moment. Toke moment. Just with a bong.
In all honesty, if they
smoke moment.
In all honesty,
she's a comedian. She needs her joke moment.
Joke moment.
That would make their podcast feel more authentic, honestly, if they did that.
Oh man.
Let's talk about Charlotte.
Yep.
I want to talk about the emotional person and the sometimes feeling that emotional person is hijacking the moment because of their emotions. Do you all have anyone like that in your life, or do you know anyone like that?
Well, hijacking.
Who would you say?
Katie sometimes.
That is so funny.
Her own mouth. This is from her own mouth that she is like really relates to Charlotte in that way, and it's never like Katie's just a very emotional person, and she feels so deeply for her friends and her family. But we joke that like whenever a friend tells her sad news, Katie definitely like gets more emotional than the person she's telling. So when we watched that storyline together, she's like, I've never been more heard than seeing Charlotte do it. And it's just like,
it's very funny.
But I think that's a real thing. And I think like Katie can't control it. She just like cares a lot. So if you tell, if you had a parent or a friend pass away, Katie will really feel so bad for you that she, gets emotional. And it's just so funny seeing Charlotte do it.
That's interesting. I mean, I wonder if I do that sometimes. I have before, like I will sometimes put things on people to be like, I remember I talked to a friend one time where I was like, I think it's really good how you and your girlfriend have like, I know you guys had a hard time and like you guys have really patched stuff up. And he was just like, thanks. I really appreciate that. And then they broke up like 2 weeks later. And I was like, oh, I really put that on time. So I think I will sometimes do that in like, it's almost like a rose colored glasses thing of, just like trying to take on a person's struggle and just affirm them to where you could probably just be like, yeah, I mean, thanks. But like,
Yeah.
you know, you're kind of taking it more serious than I am. I think I will
Yeah.
do that. And as we have said before, I am Katie. So
Yeah.
Well, I think.
Do you
I think with
that'll be? Sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
Well, just with people like that, it's like it's kind of interesting because people grieve in such different ways, and it's like having a drink and not and just being like, I don't want to talk. Like some people grieve that way, and some people grieve by weeping. And I do think that the funeral scene in general did a good job at showing what a funeral is really like, which is like, oh yeah, remember when this person was an asshole, and also like remember these moments, and some people are crying and some people are joking. Like, you know, I do think that everyone grieves in different ways, and it was an interesting storyline to show like Charlotte's strength and Carrie being like, I don't want her to know this, but I just want to hang and not be sad right now. So it felt like kind of a bummer because their friendship is like affected by it, and especially in the limited episodes we have, we don't want to see like Carrie and Charlotte like fighting. But
that was gonna be my follow-up question. Do you think this is gonna be a theme that is gonna extend into other episodes, or do you think this was an isolated? Okay,
I think
too.
Yeah, I think this was a isolated. I think these first two episodes were like a movie, and this was laying out some conflict. And now the girls are going to Rome tonight, boys. So I don't think it is. There will be other conflict, but I don't think this will extend.
So what is the Charlotte conflict going to be? Because the first episode we thought it was like going to be the family dynamic of her relating to Lily more than Rose. And that obviously wasn't in this second episode at all. So like what do you think the dynamic is? It going to be with her friend? I forgot her friend.
LTW.
Yeah. Do you think it's going to be something with her?
FDR. What's her name?
Franklin Delano.
Lisa Todd Wexley. Isn't it Lisa Todd Wexley?
It's going to be something with, Do you think it's going to be something with Lisa Todd?
Is Lisa Todd Wexley is the one that Nicole Ari's husband called Nicole Ari Parker's husband called Black Charlotte, right? Isn't that didn't he call her Black Charlotte? Yeah. The conflict might be between the two of them, or it may not even be a conflict. It may just be something about their friendship. Like it may just be their friendship story. I almost wonder if it's that like Charlotte is like has this other friend that, you know, that there's got to be some conflict with them because they're both so nice. Like she shows up for the lunch that Charlotte forgets.
Similar.
They're very similar, like in the way they dress, like everything. So yeah, maybe it's a conflict with the two of them somehow.
I mean, I do think there could be supply chain issues, and like they can't get any cream cheese in New York, and like Harry
there's a cream cheese shortage.
He starts losing, like in Back to the Future, he starts like disappearing. And like he needs like his life force.
Great Scott, Charlotte.
We need cream cheese now.
1.21 cream cheeses.
1.21 bagel watts.
This would be my Miranda gripe, and we can talk about her storyline, because I think Charlotte is very true to her character in this. And obviously we were doing like everyone else in like these writers are fallible, and we were doing the same thing. Once we announced this, we're like, what is the story going to be? And I think that a mistake that they're making that I don't like is that they're giving Miranda Charlotte's storyline in order to surprise the viewer, in order to like put us back on our toes. And it's really not, it doesn't make sense. And you're like, I'm like pushing back against it because I'm like, this is not true. And like, of course, everyone's going to fight on the internet, and everyone's going to be like, this is what the person was. It's like they're a fictional character, but there is some truth to like what is created. And I find all of Miranda's moments at school and even her life path to be completely inauthentic. I actually don't know. Even when I think about the first episode now of like, why would a high-powered lawyer at a law firm have to go back to human rights to be like, oh, these are human rights? That it's like she could leave and just start a new firm and do other work. Like the fact that she even has to go put herself in a position, because this is what happened in the writer's room. They need to create a character and a way for Miranda to have these moments.
Mm-hmm.
And I even think that it's like kind of obnoxious that it's like, it has to even, these storylines have to play out in a way that it's like, this is the teacher and this is the student, which is what we said would happen before in the way they're going to update the series. Is like, it's going to be other characters teaching these women, which is fine. But it's so ham-fisted for her to just be like, this is what I read in How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi X last week. It's like, shut the fuck up. Like that is just bad writing, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think this is because we were talking about how we were going to get into the Miranda discussion. And I think what's interesting is like, it almost feels like they're trying to do two things. I feel like they're trying to get the reference in of Miranda, being like, am I being a white savior? And then they actually say
she says
that.
Yeah.
She says, she's like, that was a little white savior. And then at the end, when they're on the subway and she like hits the kid in the Chucky outfit with the book, she's like, I didn't know if I was being a white savior. So I think they're trying to.
Have you guys ever seen a Chucky, a dressed up Chucky in New York?
No,
because we see one in our neighborhood.
Happen all the time.
We see one in our neighborhood all the time. Like Katie will be like,
Really?
I just saw Chucky coming out of that bowling alley.
That's scary.
And I go, there's Chucky. So like that struck a nerve with some people, I think, who see Chuckies in New York.
That I think is that if that's the case, which I believe you, that's dead on. That's great that they did that.
Yeah.
That's one of those things that's like the cards on the ground in New York City when Berger did that it's like some people are like, does that even happen? And then someone else is like, oh no, all the time. You see Chucky's all the time and cards on the ground everywhere in New York.
Dude, that means they got to show some of those super lit up 3-wheel motorcycle cars. You know those ones that go down the street?
Yeah.
It's like the 3-wheel thing, and they just have music blasting. There's tons of lights on them. They gotta have one of those. This is what I want to say real quick is that I think what you're saying is interesting because I think they're doing a little bit of that to throw in some cultural references, but I also think and I also think that they are trying to create a situation where Miranda's character is lost in life and she's drinking. They're setting up this possible relationship with Che Diaz that seems like they're setting the trap for that. And I want to be clear that like, I'm not saying that she's lost in life. And so she's going to this new, like woke theology of her life. I think that part of it is that they're just trying to like say, we're trying to give notice that these are conversations that people are having. And like one of them would have read this book, but I think that they're setting the thing where it's like, Miranda has left her career. Even Carrie was like, you need to go to school, especially after that terrible first day you had. Like, I think they're trying to get this thing where it's like Miranda's spinning and they're going to try to give her, I bet Che's going to have a, like, you need to quit drinking and smoke weed conversation with her. Like, I feel like they're
Brady.
trying to set a thing where it's like Miranda had this powerful thing and now she's spinning and they're going to try to like save her somehow.
Yeah. Like Kevin, what does a Miranda midlife crisis look like? If you think her character right now is acting in an inauthentic way, like what does it look like for a high power attorney to go through a midlife crisis? If you were to write the character, and I'm just curious.
No. I think that's the challenge of the show, which is like, how do you surprise and remain authentic? And one thing is like, listen, people die. That's the other conversation about this. People are like, this first 2 episodes are sad. It's like, well, getting older is sad, you know? Like, and
have you ever seen the first 10 minutes of Up?
Yeah, exactly.
So sad.
So I think that it's a little annoying, and I know this is a mainstream show. There's somehow like a second draft of these moments. Miranda's just not, to me, Miranda's like not this stupid in the way that she goes about from from the professor thing in the thing. Like these can happen to everybody. Like all of these moments happen with like I'm with gay people and minorities and black people and these cultural mistakes, like that is totally fine. But the way she says it is not necessary. It is just, to me, and on the internet, you can see this too, is people, I think, are up for the conversation. And then some of these scenes are just a little ham-fisted.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with her going back to school, but it rings a little bit inauthentic of like what lawyer who is that level in New York does this and needs to go back to school to do it. But I actually, this is why it's fun to do this podcast in real time, because it does, with what Cory just said, it does make sense that it's like, oh, this isn't an isolated thing. Yeah. And there's other supporting things around to be like, she's spinning. And guess what? Powerful Miranda, when she gets older, can have a midlife crisis. She's entitled to that, because that fucking happens to strong, confident.
Yeah, you ever seen Wild Hogs?
Exactly. Dude, wait, that's so funny. That's exactly what I thought when I was watching the second time. I was like, she's having her Wild Hogs moment. That's so funny.
So what I want to do is I don't want to take away from the Miranda conversation, but since we are watching this in real time, and one of the great things about Sex and the City is the cultural impact outside of the show. And I want to like bring up at least two things that have happened this week that I think everyone is interesting. The first is, if you don't already and you're listening to this podcast, I don't know how you don't follow Dan Clay on Instagram.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth looking up his Carrie outfit that he did for the funeral. It's amazing. SJP reposted on Instagram and talked about it. Dan, a friend of the pod, he was just on our live show, absolutely crushing it with the Carrie funeral look. And think that's worth discussing. The second thing is Peloton's response and the commercial they did with Mr. Big.
Yes.
With Chris Noth.
So
yeah. Well, Miranda and Steve have the conversation that it's funny because Steve is very anti-Peloton and Miranda is very pro-Peloton. She's like, he was on that bike 1,000 times. And he's like, but he had heart issues. And she's like, this could have been good for his heart. And it was like, and I don't know. I mean, Peloton's, their stock went down. It's going to recover. And I think ultimately it's going to be net positive.
I think it will be.
But I do think because even people being like, the more people say the word, they know that everyone knows exercise is healthy. But it is his, I don't know. We were making a big thing on Instagram that was like Big was murdered. And it's just funny that people would comment below it and just be like, I think there was, I think it was negligence, but I don't believe it was murder. And it's like some people that I think follow us that don't realize we're joking.
Also, people are just like, whoa, spoiler alert. And it's like, it's been out for a week. Okay. And this is like,
I know,
an intense Sex and the City. I get it though.
I want to also point something out. Looking at Peloton stock, back in June of this year, it was at 106. And then November 4th, it took a hard dive to $50.
Is that when the earnings came out? I think
maybe that was way before, just like that.
Third quarter. Yeah, because they whiffed on the, this is now Mad Money.
Hey, I'm Jim Cramer. I rolled up my sleeves for this.
They announced I think they took a huge loss with their treadmill that they tried to push.
Oh.
Wait, what day was that?
It was November 9th, I believe. So maybe that's when third quarter earnings came out, you said?
Not sure.
I want to, real quick, shift a gear to Jon, because we've talked about in the rewatch you were pro Carrie. Now just be yourself. But I want to give Carrie a little grace and see where you're at. We had a couple people. We talked to Kevin and I talked to a couple people who were giving Carrie some real grief, that they were like, I can't believe the way she blew up on Charlotte, and was like, I should have gone to the Hamptons. And my feeling is that Carrie, we just said people deal with death in different ways. She's dealing with the death of her soulmate. I felt like she handled everything in a very Carrie way. She tried to keep things buttoned up. I think she's allowed an outburst. What do you think, Jon?
Yeah, I don't think she necessarily blew up at Charlotte. She just she blew up. She had a little emotional break. And I think it was couched in some comedy where the neighbor came out and they then like talked about the neighbor and laughed about that. But like, I think she's also frustrated that Charlotte keeps out emotioning her. And so I think it was like a good outbreak. I think it was necessary. I don't like the things I don't like that Carrie does is when she's just like blatantly over the top selfish for like an unjustified reason, which I think we saw Carrie in Sex and the City do. This is a moment in Carrie's life where she can be as selfish and demanding and as possible. I mean, she is the one going through the grief. So I don't think she did anything wrong to Charlotte. And I think Charlotte also hopefully would understand that anything Carrie said would be probably out of an emotional outburst, and she still really likes her. She invited Charlotte back into her home, and they were able to like talk and joke about that. So I have other than her not calling the paramedics when Big was having a heart attack.
Oh man,
just kidding. I'm pretty pro Carrie so far. I think, speaking of friendships, and I got like a little emotionally moved. We haven't spent a ton of time talking about it. Is when she opens the card and saw that it was from Samantha. Yeah, the flowers. Katie and I were like, "Who's it from? Who's it from?" And she's like, "I bet they're from Natasha." And then when it said "Love Samantha," we were like, "Oh my gosh!" It was they corrected, I think, some of the mistakes they made in the first episode regarding Samantha's friendship.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think that was definitely a who knows, maybe that was like the last reference, or maybe that was the but it definitely like made Samantha more real and made it more like, oh man, they're people, they're best friends, like she's still part of the crew. Yeah. So
God, how hard are they missing the opportunity for Samantha to have a British one lump or two, like a British tea conversation with like sex with some old British dude? They're missing so many opportunities for that.
And just like that, we're
done. I'm so excited for the third episode.
Yeah. So the third episode is called. Oh, we need to talk about Kevin's. You need to talk about your conspiracy a little bit.
Yeah, this is, listen, I think Kim Cattrall will be in the series. I've fought with people on Instagram about it. I think that she will show up at some point in this. She posted her last picture on Instagram like a week ago was her with over a cup of coffee that just said "When in Rome." And this next episode is called "When in Rome." I call this, it's not QAnon. I call this Kimanon. It's my Kim Cattrall conspiracy theory, but I'm looking for what I can. This is pointed out to us by Christelle Bilodeau, who is an amazing artist who follows us on Instagram. But I think there might be something to it. So if Kim is on this, we're Babe Ruth in it. We're calling it and knocking it out of the park. We still think she's on the rest of the series, or I do, but it could be this episode, "When in Rome," because wouldn't that make sense? She's just zipped over from London. They run into her. We'll see.
I think it would be amazing.
Wait, so do you think they're actually going to go to Italy?
I think so. Yeah.
But isn't that expression "when in Rome" used for partaking wherever you are? So like it could be like.
I think they're going to
be doing New York.
I think they're going to go to Little Italy.
I think it's just. I think they figure out a Zoom Shiva, and they just did the whole episode as a Zoom Shiva hosted by Bitsy Von Muffling.
Bitsy Von Muffling they get her in there, and then there's a 5 minutes where she's like, "How do I switch the host? I need to leave, but who do I make the host for the meeting?" And her husband's like, "I'll show you, Bitsy." Her new musical theater.
That's not her husband. I thought that was her friend.
No, that's her.
I thought
new
he
husband.
was her new husband. That's her new husband. Who's like the Nathan Lane character.
Okay, got it. She certainly has a type.
She does. I hope.
I don't know yet if they're going to go to Italy. I could see the girls like taking Carrie away, and just like getting out of town for a little bit. But I don't know. I think the writers would know that the episodes where they leave New York don't feel as good, and I'm not sure if they want to waste like 20% of their total episode time outside of New York.
That's true.
I could see that. I don't know.
We'll have to see. Drops
listen,
tonight at 3
one
a.m.,
thing
right?
we have to promise to do, because which we can even do on our Patreon or something, but we have to go back and break down Susan Sharon in
Yes.
in this, because one strategic thing that I think is smart is it was so niche that I think that it was a good job of being like, oh, this was a big deal at the time. And I think it's going to push people back into the series, which is one of the like business things that I'm sure they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me be like, man, I have to go back and watch that episode to get the context. And I read the breakdown and I was like, I remember that, but it was definitely her and Bitsy. I thought were good ways to push people back to the series. That's definitely the point, but also like it made sense in real life.
Susan Sharon's the one where Carrie tells her to divorce her husband, right?
Yes.
And he yells at her all
Okay.
the time. And then they give her Charlotte's dog. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
So.
Yeah.
Well, and just like that, that's it. That's all we got.
That's all we got.
Let's go around real quick.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
Cosmo rating.
Cosmo rating.
While we're doing our Cosmo rating, go on iTunes, give us 5 stars. Tell us what you like
Yeah.
about the podcast. Subscribe to our Patreon.
Yeah.
I'm going to give this episode 3 Cosmos.
Okay.
Ooh.
I'm going to go 3.5 Cosmos. I think the first episode was electric. It was so fun.
Allegra.
This was also very fun. I could probably go higher to like 4, but it felt like there was like a lot of time just at the Mugatu wedding. And like,
What is this? A funeral for
sorry,
ants?
the funeral. It was the hottest funeral in town. John James Preston. And like the Che Diaz smoking weed scene,
So
like
stupid.
it felt awkward.
Mhm.
But it was also a good way for her and Miranda to meet. And so I don't know. 3.5. I probably could go up to 4.
I'm giving it a 4. I watched it again this morning, and maybe it's forgiving it watching it the second time, but I liked it a lot better the second time. Maybe it's because Kevin and I, when we were enjoying a lot of In Vivo from SJP wine, or SJP's wine from In Vivo. I think the wine's just called X. But maybe we got our critiques out then. But I could go lower and I could be much more critical, but I think I'm just so happy that it's back. And I think it is.
Yeah.
And I think the thing Kevin said makes a lot of sense. If it's the second part of a movie, I think it's encapsulated. It feels like one of the Sex and the City movies. And I think it's setting the table for a lot of things. So I'm giving it a 4.
I think the table's set.
Table set.
Yeah.
Let's eat.
And I think
Let's
we have, let's eat. Let's dig in. I think there's so much potential. Review for the first 2 shows, I say this is better than I thought it would be. And
100%.
And that is awesome. So
I think people were embracing for it to be like full cringe, and if like we're watching it, enjoying it, and there's just like a sprinkling of cringe moments, like we're on a really good track for this series.
Yeah,
I'm pumped.
Agreed.
All right, y'all. Later, taters.
Later, taters.
Later, taters.
The Bradshaw Boys stars Cory Cavin, Jon Sieber, and Kevin James Doyle. The show is produced by Jeremy L. Balon. For more information on the guys, check out their website at bradshawboys.com, on social media at The Bradshaw Boys, and if you see them in the street, tip your glass. Thanks for listening.
Nailed it.
We good?